Morning, children. So get set, go with our today's English lesson. Today we are going to learn about active and passive voice. So the lesson for today is active voice and passive voice. Before we start with this, let's understand about the verb forms. Okay, we already know that the verb changes its form depending upon the tense, depending upon the person, the voice and the mood. Already in our previous classes, we have learnt about the tenses and the rules of the change in the verb forms. We also know that the verb changes according to the first person, second person and the third person. Also, we have learnt in the models chapter that according to the mood, there is a change in the verb. Now we are going to learn about how does the verb change according to the voice. So Peter and Paul have come all the way to talk about this chapter, that is active and passive voice. So Peter first tells us about voice. So what is voice? The voice of the verb describes its relationship with the subject, object or any other element in a sentence. So it tells us how is the verb related to the subject or the object or the rest of the sentence. Okay, so there are two types of voices, that is active voice and the passive voice. And the active voice is important when you talk about the doer of the action of the verb, and passive voice is important when the receiver of the action is more important for you. Now, Paul says that I'll talk about the passive verb and Peter says I'll choose the active verb. So now Peter talks about the active verb, saying that active verb is used when the subject is the doer of the action and passive verb is used when the subject is the receiver of the action. Peter gives an example. I sing a song. Here sing is the active verb. Paul gives an example. A song is sung by me. Here is sung is the passive verb. Now Tom and Jerry have come to tell something. Jerry ate the cheese, says Jerry. And Tom says the cheese was eaten by Jerry. Here, ate is the active verb and was eaten is the passive verb. What do these two brothers have to say? We are watering the plants, says the elder brother. The plants are being watered by us, says the younger brother. Sometimes children, the doer when he is not important, we omit the doer. Like here, we can omit by us and just say the plants are being watered. One more example. Earth Day is celebrated on April 22nd. This is in the passive voice. Why do we use passive voice? Because here it's not important that who celebrates the Earth Day, but what is celebrated on April 22nd is more important. In active voice, the same sentence would be, we celebrate Earth Day on April 22nd. Now his sister tells him that, yay, lots of trees were planted yesterday. And she speaks this in the passive voice. If she had to speak the same sentence in the active voice, it would be, yay, we planted lots of trees yesterday. Now again Peter comes to tell us why does he use the active voice. Peter says active voice adds clarity and places responsibility where it belongs, and it makes our writing more vivid. Vivid means clear. And Paul says passive voice. If the action is more important than the agent, then I use passive voice. He also says if the agent is not known. For example, when we say someone stole the purse, who is that someone? We do not know. In these cases, we don't use the active voice. We say the purse was stolen. by someone is not needed. So when the agent is not known, we use the passive voice to connect ideas in different clauses more clearly. Also, we use the passive voice. Now the rules. The first rule, only transitive verbs can be used in passive voice. The second rule, the past participle form of the verb is used. That means only the V3 form. And we can say that when you are not able to convert a given sentence into the passive voice, that means the sentence does not have transitive verb. It has intransitive verb. And always, whatever may be the tense, we only use the V3 form of the verb in the passive voice. The third rule, the tense of the sentence does not change, children. Remember, only the form changes. Then, the pronouns are changed. We have to check the pronoun and the change. The most important rule now, the subject takes the place of the object and the object takes the place of the subject. A flip-flop. The next rule, the prepositions by, with, in are used to say who or what caused the action. So we use these prepositions. Then the passive voice requires a double verb. That means along with the V3 form of the verb, we also need to add another verb which is the linking verb, which we also call as a to be verb, and it changes its form according to the tense and gets added to a V3 form in the passive voice. Now let's look at the construction of the active voice. Subject doing the action plus verb plus object receiving the action. Mahi teaches Rohit. Here Mahi is the subject doing the action, teaches is the verb, and object receiving the action is Rohit. Now the same sentence in passive voice would be subject receiving the action first, followed by be plus past participle of the verb plus by plus object doing the action. So as we have learnt in the rules, Rohit is taught by Mahi. So first we change the places of Mahi and Rohit. That means subject changes to object and object changes to subject. Then we use the past participle of the verb along with the double verb, that is along with the be form. Okay, so is taught is the double verb followed by the preposition by and followed by the object which was the subject in the active voice. So here Rohit is the subject receiving the action, is the be form, taught is the V3 form, by and object doing the action is Mahi. Now what about the pronoun change? As we have already learned that prepositions by is used along with the object. So pronouns, what is the pronoun changes? In active voice, I changes to me, we changes to us, you change is you, he changes to him, she changes to her, it is it, and they changes to them. And now the rules for the tense forms. The present simple active verb changes to am, is, are plus past participle. The present continuous tense active verb changes to am, is, are plus being plus past participle. The present perfect tense verb in active voice changes to have, has plus been plus past participle in the passive voice. Now what about the past tense? The simple past tense verb changes to, in active voice changes to was verb plus past participle in the passive voice. The past continuous changes to was verb plus being plus past participle. The past perfect tense changes to had plus been plus past participle. In simple present tense, in present tense and in past tense, in both these tenses, the past perfect continuous tense is not used in the passive form. Now the future tense. The simple future changes to will or shall plus be plus past participle. The future perfect tense changes to will or shall plus have been plus past participle. In the future tense, the future continuous and the future perfect continuous do not undergo any passive voice form. Now the general rule according to the tenses that we have learned just now, we will learn through an example. Okay. So in the simple present, take and takes change to is taken, are taken. In present continuous, am taking, is taking, are taking change to is being taken, are being taken. The present perfect changes to has taken. The present perfect, that is has taken, have taken, changes to has been taken and have been taken. Then the simple past changes to the simple past, the example took. Took changes to was taken and were taken. The past continuous active verb was taking and were taking changed to was being taken and were being taken. The past perfect active verb had taken changes to had been taken. Now the simple future, will or shall. So simple future can be written using will or shall or also going to. So if it is will or shall, then will take, shall take changes to will be taken or shall be taken. And we'll look at the examples of going to. I am going to take a cake. A cake is going to be taken by me. They are going to take a cake. A cake is going to be taken by me. She is going to take a cake. A cake is going to be taken by me. So going to be. This is what we use in passive voice. Then the future perfect will have taken in active voice changes to will have been taken in the passive voice. Now we have an example of a sentence in passive voice, that is, I have always been amazed by the size of the Indian democracy. This sentence in active voice would be, the size of the Indian democracy has always amazed me. So according to the rules, has amazed changes to I have always been amazed. Okay. So as me changes to I, therefore have instead of has. So I have always been amazed by the size of the Indian democracy. So following the same rule, we can change an active voice to passive voice and the passive voice to active voice. We only need to understand the form of the active verb and the passive verb. Now one more example in passive voice. Each group will be assigned a research project. We are now interested in each group will be assigned a research project. We are not interested in who is going to assign. We are interested in who will be assigned. Okay. Now if we have to talk this sentence in active voice, we need to tell who assigns it. Okay. Then we would use Professor Verma will assign each group a research project. Now, who is important for us? The doer. That is Professor Verma. So, hope you have clearly understood all the rules of assertive sentences with changes in the tense forms and pronoun changes and the construction of active and passive voice. So following all these rules, look at these pictures and first make the sentences in active voice properly using the construction of active voice, then change all those sentences into passive voice following the rules of construction of passive voice. Take the help of the tabular forms of tense changes and pronoun changes. Okay children, now the time for your homework. Complete the practice exercise given on the previous slide on A4 sheet. Okay. Hope you all have understood this first part of the active and passive voice. Now, in the next video, we will learn about the different types of sentences. I have now only taught you about the assertive sentences and the change in active and passive voice in assertive sentences. In the next video, I'm going to explain you about the rules of change from active to passive voice with different kinds of sentences. Thank you and